Okay, here we go. Got some stuff going on here. Okay. So, hi, my name is Brandy Tydinko. I am a lead clinician at the largest mental health hospital in my state. I primarily treat children and adolescents. I specialize in trauma treatment. I have 13 years experience. I'm trained in clinical hypnotherapy as well as EMDR. And currently I'm CEO and founder of Life Renewal Therapy. Life Renewal Therapy is an eclectic model in which I combine several types of therapies into one effective, eclectic model, like I said, that's shown a good deal of success in treating trauma. So on this video today, I am going to talk to you about several different parts of the brain. I'm kind of looking over here because I have my computer open, my notes. I'm going to talk to you about the amygdala. I'm going to briefly touch on the hippocampus, the thalamus, and we're going to go more in depth with the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. Okay, so when we're talking about trauma responses in the brain, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex play a pivotal role in trauma and trauma response. Okay, so for instance, the amygdala functions. Hold on, let me just kind of go back. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. I don't want to put my glasses on because there's like this glare here, but like, you know, if I look over here, I can't see. So, you know, it's like I'm kind of stuck in this. Do I not? And then I have foggies on my glasses. Okay. But the amygdala, I'm going to have to because I can't see, I'm blind. Okay. The amygdala is the brain's emotional computer and alarm system. Okay. It is an almond-shaped structure in the temporal lobe. It deals with emotions, specifically fear, and it's critical for memory, motivation. It's actually part of the limbic system, so that makes sense because it does help with emotional regulation. It manages fear and panic. It typically assesses how dangerous a situation is and what the proper responses would be. When the amygdala is overstimulated, one can exhibit symptoms of emotional overwhelm, panic, hypervigilance, they may have a difficult time calming down, they may overreact to mistakes, but typically overexposure to stress will cause your amygdala to malfunction over time. Okay, so the amygdala serves like the alarm system to your brain, okay? It acts like an alarm system to protect you from any outside alarming forces. It allows you to react quickly and alerts you of danger and protects you from harm. So the amygdala is responsible, like I said, for processing emotions, fear and strong emotions in particular. It helps us respond to dangerous situations, emotional situations, and it's responsible for the three trauma responses, or the three danger responses, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So the amygdala operates like the volume on a stereo. So like right now, you know, you're watching this video, you're probably pretty low. I mean, maybe fighting, nodding off to sleep or something. But if you were to hear, for instance, gunshots outside your door, your amygdala would go from here all the way to the red zone very, very quickly. There's a whole span of engaged amygdala there. I guess that's the way to say it. Hold on, let me see. So when your amygdala is engaged, let's just say with the example of the gun, out if you heard an active shooter outside your door, for instance, okay, so you would either be ready to pick up something like a frying pan and hit this dude upside the head with it, or you would be like bashing out the window to be like, you know, hey, we're out of here. Or you would just like freeze, nobody move, let's pray this guy goes on down the street, right? So when you're talking about your trauma responses, if you've ever been really scared, I'll use a common example that happened to me this past winter. I hit a patch of icy spot on the road, and my car kind of veered to the left, and I was, that instance of, and then, maybe you start shaking, maybe your pits get a little sweaty, maybe you get goose pimples, maybe you got to go to the bathroom, maybe the hair stands up on your head, your heart definitely starts beating, your hands may get sweaty. So there's a lot of responses that can come with the amygdala being alerted. So the way that that happened, the way that system sort of engages itself is right away, and I tell my kids, put your hand on your forehead. Okay, so right behind your hand, right here in your forehead, is called your prefrontal cortex. So I call it the boss man of the brain, because we typically think of our thoughts kind of, our conscious thoughts kind of being in control. Everything that we're thinking right now, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say in this video next. So your prefrontal cortex is the thought, the conscious thought part of your brain. So immediately when your amygdala gets activated, your prefrontal cortex is going to start trying to make sense of the situation. So when your prefrontal cortex lights up in response to the amygdala being enacted, it's going to start saying, hey, what's up, dude? Is this really like, an alarm? Like, are we in danger here? Or is this a false alarm that I can turn this off? Let me take these off so I can kind of talk to you guys. Okay, so as the amygdala gets enacted, the prefrontal cortex is trying to make sense of this all. So it's putting the pieces together. So in the example, go back to the active shooter, if the prefrontal cortex, sees a man with a gun, that's going to get escalated very quickly. So you're going to be ready to enact one of those one of those responses, the fight, the flight, or the freeze. Okay, so as you, let's say with my car example, I almost got into the accident on the patchy ice. I was able to regain control, thank goodness, and that response, the adrenaline rush, the cortisol rush, all of the response that goes with that, was able to dissipate because the prefrontal cortex said, hey, you recovered, you're not in any danger, you didn't wreck the car, and it became one of those, okay, whew, is everybody okay? Everybody okay? Okay, and yeah, I had to pull over and kind of gain, my composure for a minute, but after a few minutes, you can kind of feel those symptoms dissipate, like you can feel the adrenaline and the cortisol kind of start to fade away. Your hands stop shaking, your heartbeat returns to normal rate. So that was your prefrontal cortex being able to turn your amygdala back down to, a lower level. Okay, so when we're talking about the amygdala in response to trauma, which is what typically happens, you're talking about a couple of things that could happen. In your short-term acute trauma, like in the two examples we just used, that would be a single event trauma. So your amygdala is able to kind of regulate pretty quickly after that, with help from your prefrontal cortex. When you're talking about situations where there's chronic or complex trauma, and it's over a prolonged period of time where the prefrontal cortex has a difficult time telling the amygdala or telling your system, no, you're safe, let's say in examples of abuse, long-term physical abuse, long-term sexual abuse, being in some kind of violent environment, even an emotionally unsafe environment where, people who suffer from narcissistic abuse, they could manifest some of these symptoms. But in that case, the prefrontal cortex is not able to turn the amygdala down. You're in a situation where your prefrontal cortex is telling your amygdala, no, this is a repeated pattern of you being unsafe. I think that this is probably likely that that you are unsafe, that you may have to enact your fight, flight, or freeze. And it gets a little more complicated in terms of like narcissistic abuse victims and emotional abuse, but for now we're going to keep it kind of simple at that level. But your amygdala stays basically in high alert, and your prefrontal cortex is in a prolonged pattern of stress related to a potential threat, and probably a valid potential threat. So when that happens, your prefrontal cortex is not able to turn your amygdala down, and over time this can result in some pretty serious psychological issues, including anxiety, and we know that typically 6 months of anxiety can precede a depression, so depressive issues, even long-term exposure to these can even cause some dissociative symptoms. So that's where some of that can come from, your dissociative identity disorder and other serious mental issues. So in short order, it is not good for your body, your system, to be exposed to prolonged stress. It can actually impact the way your brain functions. It can cause your the parts of your brain in charge of conscious thought and I'm sorry, my brain just left. In charge of conscious thought and your emotional response, your alarm system. It can cause those to malfunction, which can lead to long-term chronic trauma symptoms. So I know that this was my first video. Thank you guys. I had a little fit out on the front porch with my daughter, because my neighbor decided to power wash everything, for my first video. So thank you for bearing with me. We're going to keep pushing and do it anyway. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. We're going to be producing content. Hopefully, I'm shooting for once a week, maybe twice a week. But I definitely want to explore a lot about the brain, how the brain functions, neuroplasticity, and just kind of bring my expertise to what I do and what I know about trauma, and how understanding those and working within those realms can really help abuse victims and other chronic trauma survivors, can really help them recover and lead not only happy, well-adjusted lives, but lives that you can thrive in and really accomplish beyond your wildest dreams. And that's not me saying that lightly. That is actually what I do. I typically treat clients that do have levels of trauma. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor with 13 years experience. For the last 8 years, I've been lead clinician at the largest mental hospital in my state. I primarily treat children and adolescents, and I am trained in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, and I'm also trained in several other modalities, including clinical hypnotherapy, which I lean heavily on in my own practice. So thank you guys all for bearing with me, and let me know if you like this content. Let me know if you like what I do. Give me other suggestions of how I can improve, because at the end of the day, this is not about me. This is not about Brandy being on a video. This is about the content and the message and what we can do to help trauma survivors, and to, like I said, not only help them stabilize, but really thrive and accomplish everything that they want to do in their life. So if that sounds like you, go ahead and give me a subscribe so that we can walk this journey together. Trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing. I don't think so. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.